好，各位
Members, I'm the acting chairman today. We have a quorum and I call the meeting to order. First of all, confirmation of minutes. Minutes of meeting on the 9th of October. Members are given the minutes and the Secretariat has not received any proposals for amendment. Minutes confirmed. If there are no objections. Okay, item 2. Information papers issued since the last regular meeting on the 16th of July 2014. After the last meeting, there are 7 information papers issued. You will find them listed on the agenda. Item 3 items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will take place on the 8th of December, which is a Monday at 4:30 p.m. The administration proposes 2 items. First is the financial assistance to research work for the tertiary education sector. The second one is enrollment for examinations in the Hong Kong DSE. In relation to items proposed by members, I will discuss with Mr. Lam Tai Fai after the meeting. Would you please refer to the list of outstanding items for discussion? Ms. Chang, I see that in item 24, others, under others, I see that there is a review of the implementation of vocational education in Hong Kong proposed by Mr. Wong Kok King and Mr. Ip Kin Yun. Would you consider putting it forward? You would like it to be the case? Well, I see that recently there has been a lot of discussions about upward mobility of our youngsters, choice of jobs and career path. So would you consider putting this item forward? I'll discuss this with Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Mr. Michael Tian. Item 12. Well, it's an item proposed by me and Chairman, your good self. It is in relation to establishing publicly funded schools in Shenzhen. Well, if they've decided not to go ahead, then this should be taken off the list. At least there should be some response. And item 14, review on the implementation of territory-wide system assessment. Last week there was a motion debate on returning a good childhood to students. Well, when it comes to this assessment, well, all I heard was criticism. Ms. Helena Wong said that you're given a very short time and yet you have to come up with 19 to 20 pages of words. So should we have a discussion on the flaws of this assessment? Yes, we would like to have some discussions or see some reports in relation to some items. Ms. Ann Chang. In a policy address, it was said that in relation to the qualification framework, there are some kind of support or assistance schemes to help with the upward mobility of our youngsters. And the administration said that there is going to be a $1 billion fund to promote development for our youngsters. When will this qualification framework end? Do we need to hear a report in this regard? This will be recorded for consideration. We have a very tight schedule. There are altogether 4 items. So if there are no other proposals, we'll go straight to the agenda proper. Sorry, I missed out one thing about parents' education. Last week, a lot of members said, talked about expectations from parents of our youngsters. So do we need a discussion? Ms. Lee, I agree that we need to attach more importance on parent education. And on a number of occasions, there has been discussions about whether Chinese history should be made as a separate subject. And I hope that we can have a discussion item on this. I think in relation to the item in the next meeting, one of which is the enrollment situation of DSE. I'm sure they will touch on Chinese history. Perhaps it may not cover fully what you have in mind, but we will keep an eye on it, and I will discuss it with Mr. Lam Tai Fai. I know that there are a lot of items to be discussed in relation to education. Would you please reflect my view to the department or to the bureau, so that they will be prepared for questions that we will answer. If there are no other views, let's go into the agenda proper. Item number 4 is Native Speaking English Teacher Scheme, NET Teacher Scheme. I would like to draw your attention to 83A of the ROP. If there are any matters that is directly or indirectly in terms of pecuniary interest related to you, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. Without further ado, we will invite the administration to join us. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak.
好，咁啊歡迎今日嘅教育局嘅官員，咁就我唔一一介紹啦嚇。
I'm not going to introduce the officials one by one. Welcome everyone. We have Mr. Michael Tian, Claudia MO, Ray Chan, Wong Kok Heng, Virginia Ip, Albert Ho, Fernando Zhang, and Starry Lee. Altogether 8 members who would like to speak. And Ms. Ho, Sid Ho, 9. 3 minutes each. I don't think there will be a second round. Perhaps I will ask the Secretary to succinctly present the paper to us.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. The latest development of NET scheme. NET scheme is a scheme to enhance education and to provide more resources for our schools. Now, in order to support the development of Hong Kong as an international city, we attach a lot of importance to the language proficiency of students, in particular their English language proficiency. In 98 to 99, as well as 02 to 03, the government has implemented 2 schemes in secondary schools and primary schools. They are the enhanced NET scheme and primary NET schemes. We hope that students can come into more contact with English, and through the cooperations and exchanges of NET as well as local English teachers, we hope that the students can have a better language environment for learning English. And we have been implementing different schemes to monitor the situations. For example, there are school inspections, case studies, evaluations, as well as other schemes. We have been monitoring the progress of the NET scheme. And also we have commissioned an Australian university as well as a local university to conduct territory-wide comprehensive evaluations of the NET schemes. And we have found that the NET scheme has enhanced the confidence of students in learning English, and also the collaboration of local teachers and NET has also been enhanced. A number of recommendations have been made by the commissioned universities, and we have been following up on them. For example, we are trying to enhance the cooperations among different schools, and we also encourage innovativeness and also professional cooperations between local students, between local teachers and NETs have been enhanced, and also better environments have been provided for students. NET will be playing a more important role in terms of resource teachers, and they will also be bringing into schools new pedagogies such as puppetries. As for the latest development, we have commissioned academics to conduct a new round of evaluations of the NET schemes. They will be looking at the primary NET schemes, and at the next stage they will be looking at the enhanced NET scheme. So we will continue to provide more support to NET scheme. Other than the new round of commissioned evaluations, we will be monitoring closely the implementation of NET schemes in different schools, and we hope that there can be a better cooperation between local English teachers as well as NET, so that students can enjoy a better learning environment. Now, due to the time constraint, I will give each member 3 minutes. Please make good use of the 3 minutes. Mr. Michael Tan, I would like to ask questions about primary NET scheme. As for this paper, actually, it's very disappointing. It's talking about a lot of abstract things. I haven't been given any concrete information. Now, you are saying that you want to provide a genuine English environment by implementing NET scheme, but you only have 1 NET in each school, and there are a dozen schools that do not have NET. So if there is only 1 NET, how can a genuine English environment be provided? Are you joking? Maybe you should change this function. Maybe you should say that it's a authentic English environment. Well, then 1 NET cannot provide a genuine English environment, and you have not responded to that. Second, to make students or to develop children's interest in learning English. And you are saying that you have improved the children's learning. Well, what evidence do you have, and how have you been developing their interest? And you are saying that you have helped the students build a proactive learning manner. And I think this is really abstract. I don't see it. And where is the evidence? You are spending so much money on hiring NET. I would like to ask you a question. In the past 3 years, so for pre-3 and pre-6 TSA, how many of them have reached the benchmark each year? Has there been a significant improvement? These are my questions. TSA, has there been a significant improvement? Now, first, with regard to your questions, last time there was a suggestion, that is, it's hopes that for primary NET schools, there can be 1 more in the different schools. Now is already in the scholar agenda, and at the next meeting they will be discussing this. Now, we will carry out studies, and if we find that there is really such a need, we will do it. If you can add 1 more NET, I think it's different from providing teachers to all primary 1 or NET to all primary 1 students, because that would mean a genuine English environment. Well, we will be discussing that at the next scholar meeting. As for TSA, I will ask an expert to answer this question. Well, I have to control the time, so sorry, I'll have to give the time to the next member. Otherwise, we won't be able to finish our meeting in time. Ms. Claudia MO? Yes, I will provide the answer in writing later. Ms. Claudia MO? With regard to NET, I know a lot of NETs, and I also know the teachers of NETs. And also, I also know a lot of teachers who are cooperating with NET. And the local teachers told me that they do not cooperate that well with nets. They won't have lunch with each other, and also the nets would feel very lonely in a school. I'm not saying that this scheme does not work, but Secretary, we have to be frank to each other. Now, you want to create a better environment for students, but there is a problem, and you are not fixing that problem. In the past, Mrs. Fanny Law was trying to implement numerous reforms, and the teachers suffered a lot. So you don't want to do so much nowadays. And now we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a net scheme. So have you thought about this? Well, for good schools, they don't really need nets because they already teach English very well. But for poor schools, I don't think you are helping them much with this net scheme. I'm not saying that the net scheme should be abolished. However, now there are two types of English teachers in a school. They have nets and they have local English teachers. And for nets, they have housing allowance and they enjoy traffic expenses allowance. That's very different from the entitlement for local English teachers. So can you provide more resources to our local teachers? Can you provide them with better trainings? What do you mean by an authentic English environment? So if you see a Caucasian, that means it's an authentic English environment. If you leave your classroom, you don't have to speak English. I don't think that's the right attitude. Well, students would think that English is a problem they have to face in a classroom. Once they leave the classroom, they don't have to speak English. Why don't you provide more resources to train our local English teachers? Do you want the Secretary to respond? I'm asking you to cut the net scheme. If you have so much confidence in the scheme, then you won't be conducting so many evaluation studies on the scheme. They are really meaningless and unuseful evaluations. I have asked local English teachers whether they have a lot of communications with the net. They say no. So there is really a big gap between the two types of teachers, and I think you're unfair to local teachers. No response needed? Well, he knows it already, and he won't answer me anyway. Mr. Ray Chan? Well, of course, this is supposed to be a good scheme, but you assume that the nets must be better than local English teachers, and you presume that with the net, the literacy environment in the school would be improved. But actually, there are still a lot of problems now. And now we only have one net in one school. If he is good, then it's good. Well, otherwise, it's not good. It doesn't mean that his English is not good. Maybe he cannot cooperate with his colleagues, and his colleagues have to help him to get accustomed to the teaching environment. So it actually means a burden to other teachers. I'm not saying that nets are not good. However, how are they all cooperating and communicating with local teachers? And are there channels for them to reflect their views? And can they change the environment if it's not good? Well, I'll try my best to answer your questions. For our nets, well, one will be allocated to each school. I'm trying to clarify this. Well, they are a resource teacher. They are playing a supportive role. They are communicating with local English teachers so that local teachers can teach better. And it's because it's their mother tongue, so they can use a lot of new methods. For example, puppetry. This is actually suggested by them. And we have communicated a lot with the nets, and we are very concerned about whether they can get accustomed to the new environment. In the past, the wastage rate was 25 to 28%, and now it's down to 12%. So now it means that they are getting accustomed to the local environments better. Now, if local teachers really cannot cooperate with nets, how can the teachers relate their views to you? Yes, there is a channel. We have a group in the Education Bureau, and they are in constant contact with the teachers. I understand that the relationship is much better now and the communication has improved. Now, if some schools really want to reflect their views to you, how long does that take? Now, if there are really problems, we have local officers like in different districts. They can reflect their views to us. So they can tell you that they have a problem getting accustomed to the school, and you will try to help them. Yes. I would like to ask a question about paragraph 6. In the 2014-15 school year, a total of 459 public sector primary schools and 408 public sector secondary schools participate in the net scheme, engaging a total of 455 and 403 nets respectively. So we are talking about a total of 800 plus nets. From which countries do they come, and can you give us some more information on these nets? This is question number 1. And question number 2, what's the wage level of the nets, and how is that compared with local English teachers? And I will give you enough time for answering my questions. As for their country of origin and their salary levels, I'll ask Ben to answer these questions. As for the school year 2014 to 2015, we haven't conducted a comprehensive survey yet. But according to last year's survey, I think, well, actually, the situation this year is similar. Some of the nets come from Hong Kong. Some of them come from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, the UK, and South Africa. After the meeting, can you provide a detailed list to me? I want to know where this 800 plus nets come from. Yes, I can provide that information to you. And how about question number 2, their wage level? How is it compared with that of local English teachers? Are they the same, or is there a big gap?
When it comes to the wage level, basically, they adopt the pay scale of local teachers. But as pointed out, they receive special allowances, say, for example, transportation or some other benefits. So in effect, they will receive more. By how much more? It depends on the seniority of the net. In general, for newly joined net, there will be a difference for a local teacher in secondary school, certified, the teacher will receive 24,450, but for a net, adding all the allowances, it will be $47,000. So that's a huge difference. You have to see whether it is value for money. Mrs. Virginia Ip. Well, I'm sure the Education Bureau knows that I have made some criticism on the SCMP in relation to net, and they have responded to me, and through their responses I've learned more about their work. I thank them for it. And the Bureau has already said that they are resource teachers. A female teacher rightly pointed out that the extent when they are put to use differs from school to school. And for a Kiwi teacher told me that student students will sometimes talk to net teachers because they don't usually have a chance to talk to someone from a different country. But there is only one net in each school, so there is very little time allocated for each student over the year. That's what Mr. Tian said, that there is not enough resources because they don't have enough time for every student. And as I've said, that if it's not that they don't make any contributions, it's just that if you want it to be more effective, you have to put in more resources. For some schools, students only get to see them once a week, and maybe for primary school there will be some puppetry, or for secondary school there will be a Shakespearean play. I do think you need to put in more resources to enhance the effectiveness. And I heard from you that they come from different places. So some of them's got American accents, got Scottish accent, Kiwi accent. So what is the standard? What about the effectiveness? Well, Aussie accent is very different. So how can you ensure that they speak standard English? Can you allocate more time for P1 students so that when they start learning, they will have a bigger exposure to net teacher? Because I do think that they'll be more effective. When it comes to standard English, and you talk about accents. In a lot of overseas countries, they do not define what is standard English regardless of their accent. So say, for example, in the UK, if you have a Cockney accent, they will not say that you're not standard. But for English, you see there is a received pronunciation. So Queen's English. So if you've seen My Fair Lady, you'll know that if you have a particular accent, maybe it will affect their upward mobility. And in Hong Kong, if you speak Cantonese with an accent, maybe someone will discriminate against you. I think you have to take it up in a different occasion. Mr. Albert Ho. When it comes to net improving the language environment, well, we all share the same view, and yes, you may explain otherwise, but I think your grounds don't really stand. You said that net serves as resource teachers, and they are also responsible for sharing with other local teachers their professional experience, and also they have to enrich the language environment. Well, I don't know about their pedagogy. When I was a kid, a lot of emphasis was put on grammar. We learn English as a second language. It laid a very good foundation for us. Later, there is the communicative approach. So the emphasis was put on communication. But there are flaws in this approach because we don't have a conducive language environment, so there isn't much opportunity. There isn't many opportunities for people to use it. So given our language environment, can we really learn it like a native? You engage net. Yes, of course, there are merits. As Mrs. Yip said, you have more opportunity to talk to an English-speaking person. But what can a net do to promote the effectiveness of learning? Because different teacher may be different. It's a very good question. Well, when it comes to one net in a school, then the role of the teacher is a resource teacher. Say, for example, in a particular school, the net teacher will bring his or her friends to an activity. Say, for example, at the weekend for students to meet people from a different circle. They will provide the learning teaching environment in an everyday life context for students to learn, and the teacher will also serve as a resource teacher to collate teaching materials and share with local teachers. On the other hand, well, their experience is very important. There is a team in a school to support the net, which in turn support local teachers. And as a result, many people learn. Dr. Fernando Zhang, we're talking about a scheme that has been in place for 15 years. Every year, we spend over $700 million on it. So is it a long-term or a short-term policy? For the long run, we need to train local English teachers, or training local teachers to be English teachers. So are we going to extend this net scheme indefinitely, or is it going to serve as a transition? What we see is that when there is only one teacher in one school, the support they render is quite low. They will only be able to maybe have one session a week. Yes, there are successful examples, but it's difficult for the experience to be shared. Under school-based approach, it's very difficult to make it effective. We have heard about successful cases, but they are more the exception than the norm. Is it going to be a long-term policy? If it is, should we increase resources? Or is it the opposite? I don't really understand. You have to give it more thoughts. Should there be a platform for these teachers to share instead of them minding their own business in their separate schools? Based on what theory? Do you think that the net scheme should continue? There has been 3 evaluations, and there will be more coming, because we would like to monitor the implementation of the scheme. We will fine-tune the scheme to keep abreast of the ever-changing learning environment. And today we're here to talk about net. But it's not just about English teacher. We're talking about other aspects as well. Say, for example, in Scholar or the Language Fund, there are other initiatives complementing this scheme. So there are different initiatives in place. Well, when it comes to students with special education, I know that there is an ongoing case, but can you maybe give more information? There is a judicial review going on. In March 2015, I think we will have the result, and we'll give you more information by then. We have seriously overrun, and I have to draw a line. Miss Dari Lee, Miss Sid Ho, and Miss Lang Yu Chung, Miss Lee. A language environment is crucial to the learning of a language. Well, we have the language environment for Cantonese, but not for Putonghua, Mandarin, or English. But if you say that with net teacher, it will improve the language environment. I'm not saying that there is no change to the language environment, but with a net teacher, does it mean that there will be a better language environment? And in the past, what have you done to provide a better language environment? Instead of finding more resources to get more net teacher, why don't we use the same resources to train local teachers to be English teachers? The local English teacher can also forge a language environment in the school for students to learn. Can you give us some figures to show us the effectiveness of the scheme? So when it comes to creating a conducive language environment, can you give us more information? Apart from English lessons, how many schools encourage students to communicate in English at school? When it comes to creating a conducive language environment, it hinges on many different factors, and there are many initiatives in play. As the Secretary said, there are some supporting facilities under Scholar to create a conducive language environment. So it's not just about net. And I would like to say that net teachers can promote an English language environment. We're not saying that when there is a one net that the environment will improve. We're talking about in class when there is a partnership teaching between a local teacher and a net, there will be synergy. And the study done by University of Melbourne show that this cooperative teaching is better in arousing students' interest to learn English. And we've seen some figures that about 80% of teachers think that this cooperative teaching is very helpful. Some members talk about asking net to teach P1. We've asked all primary schools. The response we got was that there is only one school who would like the net to teach P1.
Chairman, can he provide me with a paper afterwards that is about improving an authentic environment for children to learn English? Ms. Sitho, for the NET scheme, it has been implemented for 15 years in primary schools, and now you're still talking about how to make improvement to it. Now, what kind of policy would be like that? That has been implemented for 15 years, and you still need to improve it. If there is no way to improve it, then I would like to know what the next step is. Are you putting even more resources in it, or are you going to scale it down? Now, as for the whole paper, it's mainly talking about the collaboration between NET and local teachers. I think there is still a big problem. But have you compared the students' academic results? Yes, a NET is a resource teacher. He's supposed to provide extracurricular activities, and then students would know that English is really a tool and they can use it to communicate with people. Now you're doing so much. At the end of the day, you want to enhance the students' language proficiency, but I do not see a good academic result. Now, have you looked at the primary schools and secondary school students' academic results when they are compared with what it was like 15 years ago? How about academic results? Yes, maybe Stephen can give you some figures. We have a territory-wide or a territory-wide assessments in the past. The passing rate was 75.9%, and now it's reached 80.4%. I can't say that is a major improvement, but you can still see an improvement. And I would like to reiterate that is about our future. Just now the Secretary has already I talked about it. As is, we are considering whether a net should be added to the schools, and now Scholar will be looking at it. It has been implemented for so many years, and there's only an improvement of 5%. I think you're investing too much for a minute return. Well, if you spend the money on other areas, maybe the students' results will be better. So I would like to ask you, what will the future of the net scheme be like? Will you expand it or what? Now, we will be optimizing it. At each stage, we may be able to optimize the scheme, and new teachers will bring new ideas. I'm saying that the scale now is not acceptable. It's not good for both nets and local teachers. Well, the secretary says that the scheme will be optimized. So I don't know what he means exactly. Well, for the word optimize, well, it has been used for many years, but what have you optimized in the past years? This is a very abstract verb, and I think you are just hiding behind it. Well, what concrete things have been done in the past 15 years? Nets have been teaching our students. So what areas have been optimized? Can you tell me more specifically? And for paragraph 10, in the school year 2013 to 14, you conducted a survey, and you said that most of the comments were positive. Yes, I think nets do play a role, but I want to know the effects more. You have to quantify it. You can't just give me a conclusion. So in what areas have they helped our students improve? And have you asked the schools? Now you're providing them with one net. Have there been any problems? Have you surveyed on the problems? Now, there have been 15 years of implementation. So what difficulties, what problems the schools have encountered, and how have these problems been resolved? As far as I know, a net in a school may create problems because the school may not know how to make use of the net. What is he supposed to teach? And because there is only one person, so how can you maximize the effects of having a net in a school? You are saying that he is supposed to assist local teachers. So can you tell me more? What plans does the Education Bureau have to assist these nets? Well, I can tell you more about optimization. Several years ago, nets were to optimize the pedagogies in classrooms. For example, they will use computers, TVs, or radios. And now, gradually, for P1 to P6, there are more collaborations, and also there are more exchanges among schools. So this was the process of optimization. If you talk to the schools, you will know that nets have been helping them a lot, and also there have been more inter-form and inter-school collaborations. Chairman, well, I want to ask you a question. When I look at the paper, you have provided us with some information. And how about the cost? Well, each year is about 7 million. And we have 858 nets in Hong Kong. So when I make some calculation, it's $870,000 per net. And now you told us that when they first joined the profession, a net would get $47,000 a month. So when I make the calculation, there is a difference because each year they would only make about 500,000. So what has happened to that 370,000? Has that gone to administrative costs? Well, Ben will answer that question. Just now I gave you an example as just the wage of a new net, and that includes his welfare. But of course, each year his salary would increase. So for a net, his salary can be much higher because if he reaches the ceiling of his pay scale, then that would be much higher. For a primary school net, he can make as much as $90,000 per month. So that means he's still at the basic rank. Well, for nets, they do not have different ranks. So it's from 47,000 to 90,000. Well, 90,000 in an ordinary secondary school is almost the pay of a principal. Yes, you're right. So we would all ask this question. The cost is very high. So how good is the result? And also, other than the wage we talked about just now, there is also administrative cost. Because you also have a net administration team under the Education Bureau. So does that 90,000 include that administrative cost? As for the net session is within the envelope of the Education Bureau. And there is another cost, that is the recruitment cost. Because many of the nets come from other countries. We have to recruit them from other countries. As for the effect of the net scheme, it seems that, yes, is effective, judging from the results of the evaluations. But we think the cost is really high. So how can we enhance the effectiveness of the net scheme? NET have told us that they have encountered a lot of problems, and local teachers have also reflected their views on it. I think more studies should be conducted and more improvement measures should be in place in the future. I'm sorry, we have a lot of items to discuss today, and we just have limited time, so I cannot give you a second round for asking questions, and we all have to abide by the 3-minute rule. We expect that we will finish the net discussion by 5, but now we are overrunning by 25 minutes. I'm really sorry about it. Well, for the last item is also very important, but for the startup loan, I don't think we have a lot of questions about it. I think it's very difficult for us to swap the items. Now, if we can only spend 20 minutes on each item, there cannot be much discussions. Can we defer the 4th item to the next meeting? I think we should control our time better. If not, then we can only defer the last item to the next meeting. Can we make a decision earlier, Chairman? Let's move on to the next item, enhancing the transparency and quality of the self-financing post-secondary sector. Secretary, you know that we are under time pressure, so please be succinct. Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, please go on. Well, as for our major policy, I would like to highlight on them. Now, for publicly funded and self-financing post-secondary education sectors, we would like to support them both. As for self-financing sector, it would have to respond quickly to changing society needs. And It provides a wide array of programs for school leavers, our workforce, and the community at large. It plays a very important role in providing human resources for our society. Over 38% of our young people in the relevant cohorts have access to degree-level education in the 2013-14 academic year. In the past, it was just 18%. And now nearly 70% of our young people have access to post-secondary education. Self-financing post-secondary sector enjoys independence, and they do not have funding from the government. So the government would monitor them in a reasonable and proportional manner. We hope that we will look at their governance, and we want to enhance the quality. These are the most important things. A number of schemes and measures have been implemented to help them. And a lot of information is now provided in this area. For example, there is Concourse, iPass, eApp, etc. So we have had a lot of positive comments on the work in this regard. The government has implemented a number of measures to enhance the quality of this sector. For example, there is a self-financing post-secondary education fund. We have adopted a number of measures to enhance the quality. For example, the UGC and UGC funded institutions as well as Hong Kong CAAVQ have formed a committee, and this committee is looking at the achievements of community colleges and self-financing institutions. We also attach a lot of importance to the employability of their graduates. Their governance is also very important, and we have commissioned a consultant to look at the quality assurance and governance of these institutions. And there has been a consultancy study on good practices. Later on, the reports will be shared among institutions, and there will be more in-depth exchanges with these institutions so that a code of good practices can be put together.
Thank you. 4 members have indicated to speak: Wong Kok Hing, Helena Wong, Sid Ho, and Ann Chang. 3 minutes each. Ms. Dari Lee as well. Mr. Wong Kok Hing. Thank you. Upward mobility of our youngsters is an issue of concern to our society. Of course, the quality of self-financing programs is equally important. So when it comes to these self-financed programs, especially those in relation to vocational training, what has the administration done to ensure quality? And can students of these programs indeed find a career that is aligned with what they are trained for? Apart from the AVQ, that is the accreditation council. Well, we also encourage institutions to get accreditation and recognition from different aspects. And we also encourage them to pack their programs with professional groups and sectors, because that will be more effective. We take a step at a time, but this is the way to go ahead. I have heard that there is a manpower shortage for a lot of major projects, especially professionals. And there is also great demand for skilled workers. Well, will there be any initiatives to train manpower so that they will be trained in time to meet demand? Through individual policy bureau, we have obtained some information as to the future manpower need, and we liaise with the education institutions. We have purchased over 900 places to train manpower that will be much needed in future projects. We actually have 3 years to gather experience. Ms. Wong, paragraph 8. Well, in 2010, in the post-secondary education review report, it's said that for the entire post-secondary education sector, there should be a standard quality assurance body. The secretary said that he keeps an open mind. What does he mean? Is there a timetable? What open mind is he talking about? And he said that there is a liaison committee on quality assurance. We ask for a QA body, but you come up with a committee. So I think this is only this is just talking shop. And you also talk about studies on governance, and quality assurance in Hong Kong, and you've also studied international good practices. I have looked on the internet. It's a meaty report. The summary itself is over 10 pages long. I suggest that we have a special meeting and ask those who pen this consultancy study to come to talk to us and explain to us. And there should be a public hearing inviting those who are in the post-secondary education sector and various stakeholders to express their views. We have spent a lot of money on this study, and you simply bury it. We have to tackle this issue seriously, because the fact is a lot of students, parents, and teachers are affected. They have spent a lot of money to take these courses. And if there is no quality assurance, and if the course doesn't complete properly, and if there is no regulation, then it will be disastrous. We've heard about some cases in relation to these self-financed courses. Well, by the law, CAP 320, there are some sort of regulations, but it is not enough. Do you simply rely on the PS? When are you going to review CAP 320? When will you have a public hearing to discuss this consultancy study? Let me just give you a few points in answer to your question. We're very serious. We're talking about a 3-stage implementation, so we have to take it a step at a time. Apart from releasing the report in August, we are going to consult the institutions to tackle the issues specifically. You mentioned about the Tonga groups of hospital. We have seriously overrun. So I'm afraid, Secretary, I cannot allow you to continue to talk. Ms. Wong talks about a special meeting. It's for us to decide. I will talk to Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Indeed, 3 minutes is not enough to have a meaningful discussion. If there is a need, if you think there is a need to have a special meeting, please tell us. Next, Ms. Ho. I strongly support Ms. Wong's suggestion. There should be a special meeting and a public hearing inviting different parties, especially student unions and parents, to come to talk to us about the situation in relation to self-financing programs. Well, previously, the Lingnan University oversubscribed in some of their courses, and that they have to make use of space in industrial buildings, and students can't even get a time slot to use the library. And there are a lot of other problems. And we have made it very clear that there needs to be a statutory body to regulate these programs and institutions. And the report also made that very clear. But the summary said that the institutions should do this and that. But we're asking the administration to do the right thing. Should there be a statutory QA body to ensure quality, so that parents and students won't suffer? You've spent a lot of money on the consultancy study, and you only give us an executive summary of 10 pages or 20 pages. So this is not properly done. Please find a suitable date to hold a public hearing. Invite teachers and various parties to talk to us as to how this should be regulated, and about the setting up of a statutory QA body. Every year you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on something meaningless. We're talking about students spending a lot of money on these programs. We need to put in resources to set up this statutory body as soon as possible. Secretary. First, there is high degree of autonomy and freedom of, there is also academic freedom when it comes to these individual institutions. So in terms of governance, we have to take into account reasonableness and proportionality. And we're going towards the 3-in-1. This sector worked very hard to improve their quality. We should let them do it first. No, I'm not talking about a subsidy. The government has given them a lot of sites at low cost, and there is also low interest loans. We fully support that, but we're talking about public money. So you can't say that they are self-financed, so there is no governance. Do we have to go to the Consumer Council to supervise these self-financing institutions? We have 3 more members, and I will draw a line here. Ms. Chang. I joined this panel only starting from this year. I heard that there is actually no supervision when it comes to self-financing post-secondary sector. Insufficient regulation. What I'd like to say is that in relation to these self-finance programs, if there is not insufficient regulation, then it is dangerous, because you are turning university degrees into commercial products. students who cannot get a place in publicly funded institutions, then in order to get a cert, they just sign up for whatever program in whatever education institutions. At the beginning of the year, Secretary, you said that in relation to what Form 6 students should do after they've completed Form 6, whether they should go to a publicly funded school or to take a self-finance program or join vocational courses, and also what are their career pathways, study pathways. You have spoken a lot. You have also talked about their employability. Page 7. I don't know if the Education Bureau has done any tracking studies to track the path of the students, look at how much money they have spent on the studies, and the wage level, and whether they can find a job after they have graduated. Maybe 5 years down the line, they are still making only $10,000. First, let me answer about the studies. Employability is very important to us. We require institutions to state on the internet the employability of their graduates. Some of them are quite good, bearing in mind that they are self-financed. If they do not have something to show, there will not be any students. And the second part is that given the societal development, in some areas there needs to be more effort put into it. For self-financing programs, if they are not accredited by the CAA and VQ, the students will not be able to get grant loan. Well, when members talk about under-enrollment, it was a year or two ago. In recent months, we have done a lot of work, a lot of discussions and exchanges. So you don't hear instances in which students can't find a job.
Mr. Lee. Well, this is a very important issue. That is how to enhance the quality of the self-financing post-secondary sector. I agree that we should spend more time discussing it, but as to whether a special meeting should be held, I don't really think so. The Secretary said that there will be a second step and a third step, so I think we should give him more time. And secondly, well, if we have talked to the profession, they have this complaints. That is, now they are monitored by two groups. Now, first, we know that there are UGC-funded institutions, and they are subject to more supervision. So I would like to know more. Now you have a report. So how are you going to supervise the whole sector? So for those funded by UGC and not funded by UGC, it seems there are different ways of supervision. So what's the latest situation? Maybe Brian can answer this question. Yes, thank you. Just now the Secretary also mentioned this. As for quality assurance mechanism, in the past 2 years, we have done some work. Now, UGC in 2010, it makes some recommendations in its report on higher education review. That is, it suggested that a single QA body for the entire post-secondary sector should be set up. We adopt an open attitude with regard to this. Now, for all self-financing institutions, they have to agree with us before this can be implemented. As for QA mechanism, we have asked the representatives of the Hong Kong CAAVQ to form a Quality Assurance Council. It covers members from the Joint Quality Review Committee, which was established by the heads of universities committees. So this is a tripartite committee, and we are trying to come up with a set of good practices so that consistency can be enhanced. Now, we want to enhance accountability as well. As to whether a single QA body should be set up for this purpose, we are open-minded. Yes, it can be a single QA body, and there can be two different QA bodies. Now we are still talking to the stakeholders about this. Chairman, I don't think he has answered me thoroughly. Now you are working towards a single QA mechanism. They say that they are open-minded as to whether there will be one or two bodies. I think we can discuss that later. Next, Mrs. Regina Ip. She has gone out of the room. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. I would like to ask about paragraphs 9 and 10. It's about the employability of the graduates. And you are asking the institutions to publish the graduate profile and employment pathways expected of new degree programs to be offered. Yes, these measures may help students when they want to choose their programs. However, it may not help them in having a clearer picture of their employment pathways. So will you come up with more effective measures, Secretary, so as to enhance the employability of the graduates? For example, can there be measures to help the institutions so that they can work together with the business sector or future employers, so that the students can have practicums and some of the companies, and then it will be easier for them to find jobs in the future? Thank you. This is a very good suggestion. Yes, we are actually trying out this. For example, for some VTC courses or programs, we have allocated them with some resources, and the money will be spent on internships. And we have seen students doing this. This will be part of their work experience, and they can also have connections with future employers. But this is just a pilot scheme, and I also agree with you that this should be enhanced. As for liaison with professional bodies, this is also very important. For example, the Construction Industry Council or the retail institutions, etc. These bodies would also help the students, and also the Institute of Engineers can also help. As for nursing, that is also true. There are cooperative programs with hospitals. Well, I'm not worried about VTC because it's a huge institution. But how about other self-financing institutions? They do not have such a professional department to do this, or they do not have the relevant staff to take care of this. So I think that the government should give more assistance to the smaller institutions. Now, I'm not naming the institutions, but we are now trying to help some institutions. For example, the institutions providing trainings in for the service sector. Mr. Albert Ho, other than the age universities, I think there are some other institutions that are providing this kind of programs, and I'm worried about their quality. As for the age universities, the government is giving them a lot of help or assistance, for example, a very low premium or premises, etc. This is public money. So the government cannot shirk its responsibility. It has to assure the quality of these programs. But now there are a lot of problems. Some institutions are making a lot of money, some are losing money, and some have problems with management, some over-enroll students, and some graduates find that the programs are not useful. And some of the graduates even have to repay huge loans because of such programs. And there is no articulation with degree programs. I think this is really chaotic. And for the young people, they would be very lost. And they would think this is a long and winding road which leads to nowhere. So I think we really have the responsibility to assure the quality of these institutions. The government should put more resources in these areas so as to ensure that the young people are making an informed and meaningful choice when they take such self-financing programs. Other than having a body to monitor the institutions, I think now the laws in this regard are not clear. Different institutions have different structures. They are different from universities, and some of the institutions were not providing education in the past. So maybe the law has to be reviewed in this regard. This is a huge scope. I think we really need to hold a public hearing so that we can hear all the problems from the stakeholders.
I have a few minutes. I fully agree with what you said in relation to the matters of concern. The number of things you mentioned, some of them are ongoing. And in relation to contact with self-financing post-secondary education institution, we are in contact with them. When it comes to a new and better system, yes, we agree with that and we're working on it. In relation to self-financing post-secondary education, I think we have gone down the wrong path because they have been commercialized. And we now see the serious problems that have surfaced. The education institutions treat this as a business, and they will look at the cost and provide the quality of programs corresponding to that.
So how can we assure their quality? It seems the government is not taking this seriously. As for the Hong Kong CAAVQ initiative, it is not concrete. The major stakeholders are the 8 universities. And you have formed this liaison committee on quality assurance. So it is a peer mechanism. So it's useless. If this goes on, how long will it go on? We have looked at other countries' examples. For example, Europe. For young people, when they go to universities, it's free. They do not have to pay tuition fee. And in some countries, they even provide subsistence to their young people. So, but in Hong Kong, you have turned tertiary education into a commercial market, and you don't really want to monitor it. So you are just forming committees, and you are forging this framework or code of good practices. These are really useless things. They are just for reference, and they are just about principles as to how the practices are implemented. Nobody cares. There are a lot of conflicts in our society now. And some people say that it's just because our young people don't have a good future, so that's why there are so many problems. But now the young people have to pay so much for their education in the self-financing sector. I think you should really reposition post-secondary education, and you should do a better job in publicly funded post-secondary education. In the U.S., a lot of young people can have access to higher education, but I think in Hong Kong, this system is really not working, so I don't think you should shirk your responsibility. I would like to ask a very simple question, and for this paper, it covers a lot of areas. You hope that the tertiary institutions can be self-disciplined and they can come up with their own code of good practices, etc. But this is not enough. Well, because this is public money, so there is an issue of accountability. We have a post-secondary colleges ordinance, Cap 320. And it covers the post-secondary institutions that are monitored by the government. There will be amendments made to Cap 320 soon. So can you tell us what will the future be like? Now you want them to be self-disciplined. So would there be further amendments made to the post-secondary colleges ordinance? In 2013, January, we came to LegCo to talk about Cap 320. Members didn't want to discuss that at LegCo, so we withdrew the topic. So I think we need to focus on the most important issues now. So that's why I told you that we are now liaising with the sector. We hope that they can be more self-disciplined and more information platforms will be provided to students so that transparency can be enhanced. We have done a lot in those areas. So you don't hear students saying that they are in the fog. So now a lot of information and data are available online, and the transparency has been significantly enhanced. Well, some students may say that they have financial problems.
In 2013-14, 26,000 students are making the applications, and 1/3 of them are eligible. And we're talking about $1.2 billion. Well, do you have any plans to amend the ordinance? For individual items, I know from the discussion that there is no consensus. We will first work on certain parts, and we'll see what more you would like us to do. We keep an open mind. Okay, well, we need more time for discussion. You may not be happy with it, but I do think we need more time to deal with this. Let's move on to the next item. Ms. Helena Wong, can we get an undertaking from the Secretary that the report will be given to the panel before the special meeting? Yes. Next item is startup loan for post-secondary education provider. There are papers for your reference. A different team will join us.
我估計呢係即係
I think the Undersecretary and the Chuhai College have prepared a presentation, but we have seriously overrun, and we have already got the discussion paper. Perhaps we'll just go straight to asking questions. If there are no objections, let's deal with it this way to save time. Who would like to ask questions or make comments? Please give an indication.
If
there are no questions, well, we're moving very quickly, but this is in relation to a funding application. So at least we will have to discuss whether you support the administration proposal to go to the FC. Well, I have no questions because I have learned everything I would like to know from the paper. We support this proposal, so we don't plan to ask any questions. Next, Mr. Kwok. Just a small question. In the past, there are some education providers that have done something after they've got the loan. However, shortly afterwards, they have raised the fees significantly. So we would like to know whether there will be any significant changes in relation to their fees after they have obtained the loan. Perhaps I will defer to Chu Hai.
There will be no there's independent consideration. We are not going to consider that, combine the increase of tuition with the building of the building site. The increment is reflect to the cost of a living compensation or inflation rate, so to speak. Thank you.
So if there's no plan for the school to increase fees, then I support this. Because Chuhai College has got a long history and has been quite successful in the provision of education. Who would like to speak? Ms. Wong, Helena Wong. Of course, we support the proposal to provide a loan for Chuhai. But I'd like to say once again that supervision is very important. CAP 320. Yes, the administration has proposed to discuss about this, but they only said that they aim at making it easier for this to be turned into a market, a commercialized market. When we talk about the last meeting, that is the consultancy study, this consultancy report on governance was released. We are going to have a public hearing. We will invite the education providers and stakeholders to come to speak to us so that we can follow up on this. There are some very good recommendations. These issues are to be followed up if we talk about review of CAP 320. It talks about governance. It stipulates that there should be some external members participating in the governing board of the education provider. They also talk about accountability. They also talk about inclusiveness, that there should be representatives of students and various parties in the board. The administration can at least keep an eye on it. We have to ensure good governance in self-financing post-secondary education institution. We give you a loan, and we have to ensure quality service. Anything to say in reply? We agree with what Ms. Wong said. We've been doing a lot to enhance supervision of the quality of the self-financing post-secondary education institution, and we aim at enhancing transparency. There are a number of recommendations in the consultancy report. In the near future, we will move along this path. I hope that this will not affect your support to Zhuhai. Anyone else? If not, well, to conclude, members' inclination, I think they support the administration's proposal to the FC for funding approval. And members expressed the need to review the relevant ordinance. I think that will be our conclusion of this item. Thank you, Zhuhai, for coming. Next is the last item. We have saved some time. Well, I hope we have enough time to discuss this item. Is guidelines on teacher professionalism and school activities. Under Secretary, can you use a minute or two to take us through the paper? Just the salient points. Education is an important cornerstone of Hong Kong's long-term development. There are regulations and ordinances regulating governance and teachers' conduct. Under the relevant ordinance, the board will manage the school to promote education. The board and the incorporated management committees will run the school in accordance with the relevant guidelines and regulations and to provide quality education for students. The school management committees and these incorporated management committees will also ensure that all teachers are fully qualified. And in this regard, there is a code for education profession of Hong Kong. So the schools will be able to formulate their own regulations in this regard. When it comes to training of teachers, well, schools also play a part in ensuring proper conduct of teachers. This code for the education profession is formulated after extensive discussion. It sets down the standard of the ethics and conduct of teachers. That is, say for example, teachers will have to ensure the safety of students, and students will have to take into account the background and family background of students. And teachers should also teach in a professional, fair and open manner, teach students to take into account different viewpoints. And this code should be abided by at all times, and teachers should be reminded by schools. When it comes to the curriculum, schools should provide professional guidelines for teachers. And teachers will make use of the different methods and resources in imparting knowledge. Teachers should also instill the correct values in students, and that should be teaching materials from different perspective, and encourage students to have critical thinking and to look at the matter from different perspectives, and to ensure that students have access to materials and information from different aspects. I believe that the school and the teaching team will exercise their professionalism and conduct discussions on relevant issues. In relation to the Occupy Central movement, well, Schools and the teaching force have upheld their professional principles and may remain committed to their duties, which helps to minimize disruption to school operation and to ensure students access to a balanced education and help maintain an orderly learning environment. Any questions? Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you. And also Mr. Kenneth Chan. These guidelines are very important. As the Undersecretary said, teachers should be objective and not radical. But as the press reports, some teachers, in guiding students' discussions on certain matters, they have used some unreasonable methods. They have also led the discussions in a certain way. To an extreme, in a kindergarten, pupils are taught with pictures and comics that the police is not good. If teachers do that, obviously, it is a breach of the code. How do you deal with that? This is a matter of public concern. It's reported by the press, and there are a number of cases. In relation to each case, we have talked to schools to find out what actually happened and whether it is as reported. So far, we have not seen any particular case in which there is a focused discussion on Occupy Central. In a kindergarten, maybe it was touched upon when during a session of drawing. And in relation to this particular case, the school has issued a statement and clarified the matter, and we see that the school has adopted suitable measures to deal with it. It's been quite some time from the beginning of Occupy Central. We're talking about sporadic cases. We're confident with the ethics of the teaching force. We will continue to monitor the situation. If we see individual cases that are deemed problematic and the schools did not, do not take any actions, we will follow up.
From the Education Bureau's perspective, have you actually seen many cases like this in schools? Well, according to the information in hand, we don't think this is so commonly seen in schools. There are just several cases, and some of the reports are not comprehensive. They have just reported on one side of the story, and we have still a number of members who would like to raise questions. Professor Chen Kalok. Now, yes, for the guidelines, it seems that the government doesn't want to give people an impression that they are banning teachers from discussing certain things. The government is just telling us that the teachers should be objective and they should ask the students to look at different angles, etc. And the secretary said some other things at the beginning of the Occupy Central movement. He said that guidelines should be issued, so we thought that that would be a white terror. And now it seems that things have changed, and you're saying that teachers should be objective and impartial, etc. Well, I think in schools we discussed a lot of controversial issues. June 4th, Liu Xiaobo, civil disobedience. These are the things we have to discuss in schools. So the guidelines should encourage schools to invite people with different political views to share their opinions with students. So schools should be a free space for discussions. So for your guidelines, they are neither here nor there. So you are just inviting more criticisms. I think you should adopt a more positive attitude, and you should embrace controversial issues. Now, for those guidelines, it seems that you are neutral, and it's neither here nor there. But do you know that are there certain schools that have strict rules? For example, if a student hangs a banner saying that I want you true universal suffrage, or a student just wears a yellow ribbon and is penalized, I hope your answer is that you want teachers and schools to be accommodating and objective. Well, for the guidelines, we are not making a concession, and we have not changed our stance. If you want to ask the Education Bureau's view on the Occupy Central movement, we want to reiterate that it is an act that's violating the law, so we do not encourage people to be engaged in it. But discussing it in school is acceptable. And for discussions, of course, it is supposed to be impartial, and the schools can make their own decisions as to whom they should invite to their schools to discuss these issues. As for students' expression of their opinions, whether they have been penalized in the past because they just want to express the political stance, I think I will ask my colleague to answer this question. Well, we have talk to schools, and schools have been working in accordance with the school rules. For example, what students should dress. Do they allow students to wear anything else other than school uniforms? So the schools just stick to their own rules. As for hanging banners in schools, most of the schools also have their own procedures. For example, first of all, the student has to obtain the consent of the school authority. Then he can hang a banner. And some schools also have display boards where students can express their views. Now, the whole city is debating about true universal suffrage, so I think there should be no prohibited areas when it comes to discussions in schools. We have education ordinance, education regulations, and code for education profession of Hong Kong. These have already set out what teachers and schools should do. Of course, I think that schools should not evade controversial issues, and they should instill in students positive values. I think the schools should make professional judgments. But now something worries me. Some political parties and councillors, including executive councillors, are talking to the CE, and they are saying a lot about liberal studies. Some of them say that this subject should be changed into an elective subject, and for the new senior secondary curriculum, less political issues should be included. So the schools are not allowed to give their to make their professional judgments, because now we have a new senior secondary school curriculum, and there have been years of discussions before this was put together, and now some people are giving numerous advices to the CE saying that liberal studies should no longer be a subject that the students must take. It should become elective. Why is that? Well, Hong Kong is a place which enshrines the freedom of speech. So for political parties and anybody, they can express their views on education. Of course, when we think about a curriculum, we would listen to a lot of people's views. Now we are conducting a review on the new senior secondary curriculum. We will approach it with a professional manner as to what changes will be made to the curriculum that would only be known after the review. We would not succumb to political pressure. I'm happy to hear that from the Undersecretary. He says that the design of the curriculum will not be interfered by the politics. Otherwise, it would be a grave problem. Because if there is political pressure, then the curriculum would have to be changed. And then that would be a huge problem. So I think you really have to defend your curriculum in this with this attitude. Well, we have to do things in a reasonable manner. Yes, Hong Kong is now a politicized society, but we have to act reasonably, and we have to attach the most importance to the well-being of students. Mr. Ray Chan, well, some people are saying that they are homeschool organizations, and they have asked the Education Bureau to give them the information of all the teachers in Hong Kong. Of course, the Education Bureau refused to do that because it's about privacy. And the Privacy Commissioner has started to look into this. It has also invited the public to give opinions. I think by the end of this month we will be hearing more about this. I am worried that some organizations want to clamp down on teachers because of their political views. And also some organizations, for example, religious organizations or some so-called moral organizations, they think that teachers with a different sexual orientation should be condemned. So how can the government protect these teachers? Is there a mechanism to protect these teachers so that they would be free from the harass of these organizations? I think for the Hong Kong laws themselves, they are already providing protection for people, and they should be free from the harass of other people. Yes, the Privacy Commissioner is going to conduct a study. We will be cooperating with them, and we also will look at the recommendations from them. As for teachers, if they have certain views on something, for example, their views on religion or their views on sexual orientation, I don't think those should become subjects of criticism, but they should always discuss with students with an impartial manner. Yes, I think sexual minority should be respected. The government has been promoting that. But if some teachers are harassed by certain organizations, do you have measures to help them? Chairman, I think the Hong Kong law is already providing enough protection to teachers, but if Mr. Chen has some real-life examples or cases, maybe he can refer them to us. Do you have real-life examples? Yes, I will talk to Mr. Yang in private. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Chairman, the government wants to control education. Many countries want to do that. Well, Mr. Chang Yuk-sing's family was harassed by the colonial government. His brother was distributing political pamphlets in school, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. That was Chang Duck-Sing and Chung Yuk-Sing's sister was studying at Bellino's College, and she protested in the school playground, and she was also imprisoned for 14 days. Chung Yuk-Sing was more fortunate because he was already in university then. And he got a first honor when he graduated, but he couldn't find a job. Fortunately, an old professor asked him to help him do research. So these were persecutions. It was in the colonial era, and it was blatant. And now we have the basic law, and supposedly we should not be persecuted. But now we don't think that is the case. Now the PTA has initiated a boycott of classes by teachers. Have those teachers been penalized? Have they violated the education ordinance? How do you view that? Have they violated the education regulations and code for the education profession of Hong Kong? What's your view? Under Secretary. Just now, Mr. Leung mentioned President Zhang and his family. I do not have the relevant information, though I don't want to comment on that. And he's talking about things that happened during the colonial era. And now Hong Kong is returned to China. I think we will be doing a better job. As for class boycott, the PTA, well, Chairman, I don't know if I should use this word, but I thought the PTA called on teachers to boycott classes. And we knew that not all the teachers accepted that. Maybe one or two individual teachers made that remark, but most of the teachers didn't boycott classes, and they continued teaching in schools. So they would never be punished. Is that what you mean? Well, maybe my colleague can tell you more about that one or two teachers, but it didn't really happen. The teachers didn't boycott classes en masse. Yes, they didn't ask teachers to go on strike. They just asked teachers to boycott classes. So there's a difference.
Ms. Tari Lee. Well, there may be guidelines, but more important is how they're implemented. When it comes to sensitive issues or different issues, teachers should be objective as far as possible. So, how is it actually implemented? You receive a complaint and then you will take action, or do you take the initiative to require schools to implement these guidelines? Well, I have received some complaints, perhaps out of misunderstanding, that some schools support pro-OC personalities and would invite them to organize talks at schools and reject others. Well, is that really the case? When it comes to the guidelines and the requirement for schools to be objective, that is a clear requirement. Teachers are also aware of this requirement from the code. There are over 1,000 primary and secondary schools. If I tell you that I am fully alive to exactly what is happening in each class, in every form and every school, and whether the teachers are objective and neutral, well, I wouldn't be telling the truth. But through communications with teachers, parents, schools, and through reviews of curricula and through our inspections we catch a glimpse of what is actually going on. When people tell us things, it's difficult. Well, when it comes to giving talks, we cannot set down requirements as to who they should allow to give talks. Well, perhaps put it simply, today you ask someone who support the issue to come to speak. Maybe next time you should ask for someone who is against it to come to speak. But there may be a 3-month interval in between, and if some parents think that certain schools have an inclination and tell us about it, we will go to talk to the schools to get a better picture. So my observation is that you will only follow it up when someone reflect their views to you. You say you arrange visits. Does it include inspections? Inspections and visits included. Apart from inspections, sometimes we will visit schools to give professional support. And when we are at the school, we look at different things. Our district office will have regular contact with schools as well for us to know what is going on. Ms. Ho, a very simple question. Other professions can self-regulate, say for example the Bar Association and the Law Society. But when it comes to education, which is a profession that should be highly regarded by society, regrettably is controlled with a tight leash, whether it's during the colonial government or the SAR government. They keep teachers in a short leash and control quite strictly what teachers can say or do. Some teachers told me that back in the 1960s, the code says that in class, teachers should not talk about politics. It's different now because in liberal studies, there are topics about politics. But the purpose is not to awaken the students. It's more like brainwash. You talk about education ordinance, education regulation, and the code. Education ordinance and education regulations are decisions of the administration. They can send representatives to the board to influence the administration of schools. When it comes to the code, should the administration give it a free rein for the sector to formulate their own code and to regulate themselves? Let's leave politics aside. We talk about discrimination. Perhaps when it comes to the various discrimination ordinance, different teachers may have a different interpretation. And I think it is better for the sector to formulate their own code. Is the administration willing to go along this line? Or is it the case that, like in colonial days, they will have to keep the teaching profession in a short leash? When it comes to code for the education profession of Hong Kong, it is formulated after extensive discussion and consultation with the sector. If you have time to read the code, you will find that there is no strong regulation on the part of the government, or to put it simply, the government telling the teachers what to do and what not to do. What we require teachers to do is to ensure student safety and to be objective and not to impose their ideas and their inclinations onto students. So it's not suppressive. We don't force the teachers to do certain things. I think the Undersecretary have not answered me. When it comes to the ethics and conduct and regulation, well, I think it should not be top-down. It should be formulated by the sector itself. When it comes to, say, investigations or follow-up action, it should be done by the sector itself. Or, to take a more active role, it should touch on improving the quality of teachers. But of course, when it comes to the administration, they would like to do as little as possible, so it will not be adopt an active approach. Lastly, it's my turn. Members touch about, well, Ms. Ho talk about formulating the code by the sector and self-regulation, and it should be in line with other professional sectors. And so far, we've only heard words and have seen no action. Actually, the talk has been going on for the past 2 or 3 decades, so it's just like the genuine universal suffrage. I think the discussion started in 1982. The Undersecretary today said that when it comes to political intervention, they should remain neutral and objective. Yes, it's very important, whether it is the teaching profession or the education bureau. Nowadays, there are a lot of political intervention, and there are a lot of distrust. Of course, professionally, we have to provide students with information from various angles and to encourage students to think independently and to develop a critical thinking instead of imposing the political stance of certain parties or certain groups or that of the administration on students. And there are lots of information flowing widely. Mr. Ma talked about a kindergarten, and I've tried to gather some information about this incident. I've asked some people to contact the teachers, and I've also looked at the video clip, and I've also read the education plan. I think that itself is very professional. There is nothing about instilling biased ideas. I heard a lot of people say that the kindergarten teacher seems to be instilling biased information into the students. However, there is no concrete evidence produced. It seems that it's just a Chinese rumor, and it's done in the form of WhatsApp messages. It's very unfair to the teacher, and I think that rumors will stop with the wise. So we have to consider whether we should try to find more information before believing what we're told. And I'm just trying to speak in fairness to the teachers. We've had a lot of discussion in relation to this item. There is still some time left. Well, I'm sure that Ms. Ho will have more to say. When it comes to the self-financing post-secondary education report, can we set a time for a special meeting and public hearing? Let me talk to Mr. Lam Tai Fai first. It's mentioned by a lot of members. I believe the Undersecretary will not object to that. Well, I'll ask the Undersecretary to formally give us a report. Give us the report officially, and then we will work on finding time for a special meeting, and I will talk to Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.